board sitting as the Board of Election Commissioners for the City of Chicago for Monday, December 1st, 2014. Good morning, everyone. My name is Langdon Neal. I'm chairman of the board. Seated to my left is Commissioner Marisol Hernandez, and to my right is Commissioner Richard Cowan. First item on the agenda is we do not have minutes to approve today. So we will move to item 4, which is the Executive Director's Report. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just let everybody know that the last day for filing nominated petitions was a zoo. We had a lot of people requesting, they requested copies of petitions before people filed. Thanks to Laurel and other staff members, we had 2 reproduction companies that worked all night long with staff spending the night at these locations to get these copies back in town. And I think we filled all of our requests the next day. So I think it was an unbelievable job to get this thing done. The requests were just incredible, the number of requests that we received. So I just want to let the board members know that. We had 168 people in over the weekend reviewing petitions. We were using employees' desk. We used the conference room here. It was a full house. The hours on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday were 9 to 3, both Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Today we're going to be open from 9 to 9, and along Tuesday we'll be open from 9 to 9. So I just wanted the board members to be aware of that. Met with Jim Allen today to talk about the rest of the week. We have the lottery Mr. Allen's going to be conducting. We originally scheduled for this room. We're moving it down to the lower level, across the conference room across from the Secretary of State's office, where we accepted petitions to do the lottery there, because we will be holding the challenges to the petitions will be done in this room on Wednesday. So we're going to be both floors. We'll be quite busy. So I wanted the board members to be aware of that. One other item is that I'm leaving today at 3 o'clock. I have a flight out. I'm going to Austin, Texas. I've been invited to speak. The Council of State Governments asked me to come to Austin, Texas for a one-day meeting to talk about overseas voting initiative. We have a workshop that I co-manage, and we were meeting in Austin, Texas. Of all the times to do it, don't understand this, but other people don't have elections of why we do. Ms. Bateman will be in the office tomorrow, so I think everything should be pretty much covered. But that's basically all I have. It's just things that we've been slugging through. This petitions and the objection process is going to be quite lengthy.
Okay, we'll be ready. Any other questions for Mr. Goff? All right, Bateman isn't here. Mr. Allen, anything for us today?
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. As Mr. Goff referenced, the board was quick to pivot. We weren't even done counting all of the ballots from November 4, and we were quickly moving into the municipal election. So most of our attention has been focused on dealing with news media inquiries, having to do with the petition filing and the objection process and the lottery. Everybody from the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Sun-Times on down to the Columbia Chronicle. And on that note, I think we would be remiss in noting the passing of my predecessor and one of my mentors, who I was very fortunate to know in his life, Thomas Leach. This past week, he took special care and advised me to take special care with the youngest journalists and to try to help guide them through the process and to provide information to the public, namely the news media, to the degree they requested it. He mentioned, he was quoted last week as saying that he never lied, but he also didn't volunteer information. He was one of the most respected spokesmen and long tenured spokesman of any city agency in Chicago. Chairman, I know you know, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for him. All of the board, his work is appreciated. His impact on this agency was indelible, and I just can't say enough, so I'll stop anyway. But his passing was a source of great sadness last week. And with that, that's all I have to report.
Well, thank you.
I would
Richard?
just add, I don't know, Maricel, if you ever had any contact with Tom.
I think just for about a month, as I entered, he left.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was in addition to everything else, and Jim has certainly summed up very well his professional talents. He was just a wonderful human being and a great storyteller. That those of us who had the chance just to talk with him sort of off the record about his experiences in Washington, covering Chicago, everything that he did before he started with the board. It was time that flew by all too quickly, and that certainly I will treasure. And like Jim Allen, he protected the board exceptionally well. And in many instances, we sort of were the Teflon board through the very, very excellent efforts of Tom Leach.
Well, I would just agree with all those comments. Tom was a special person in that he had the respect of the media in general, and he had the respect of the professionals in elections, and managed, even when there was a conflict on various issues, he managed to make his way through those waters and keep everyone satisfied and feeling that good government was in play. He was a great personal friend and someone I admired immensely, and as well as his son, Jonathan, and his family. He was a great man and a true gentleman. Someone whose word you could take, and a handshake meant everything in the world to him. Something that's somewhat of a lost art these days, for sure. So we'll miss Tom, and I hope that we can do a resolution for him in a formal way.
Yeah.
And maybe let a little time pass so we can have Jonathan and his wife down, recognize him here for sure.
Absolutely.
You know, Chairman, when Tom retired, we wanted to do something for Tom. He was a very humble man, and he
Yes.
never wanted to do anything.
Right.
In fact, we talk about how long. I knew Tom when I first started working here back in the late 70s. And my first job, we were at a hearing, and he asked if I could get him a glass of water. And he protected me, mentored me during those times where the board was going through some upheaval. And when I was appointed executive director, he was right there with me. And I'll always appreciate his friendship and his guidance, because he was a very intelligent man.
Yeah, he was.
So somebody who will really be missed.
Yeah. Well, we wish the best to his family. They have certainly, it's been a tough times for the family. When I visited him at the wake on Tuesday, his wife came in and she said, you know, I'm not feeling well today. And I said, well, it's understandable. She says, well, no, not because of him, but she was just coming from chemo.
Right.
So that's a tough way to go right from chemo to your husband of I don't know how many years, over 40 years funeral. So we wish him the best. Okay, we'll move on to old business. Infrastructure projects and changes in election administrations, and recommendations for 2013-2014. Got any of those, Mr. Goff?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put those on the back burner for a little while.
Okay, back burner's not the right word. What was it,
Well,
Mr. Allen? What do we say?
We do have some documentation to go through still, but we're turning over some information soon to the executive director and/or your legal counsel
Okay.
regarding various items from the past election.
All right, okay. All righty. Electronic poll books, and I take it that is one of the items that you're going to pass on to us, or someone
Yes,
staff is?
we're working on that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So we will have that for you.
And we will consider that an upcoming meeting. Voting equipment, I don't know if there's anything much to say right now on that issue.
It held up as best as possible for
Yeah.
this election.
Yeah.
I think the board needs to take a real good look at replacing our equipment.
Yeah.
Really has to.
It did, go ahead.
I'm saying, it did work, but it's really, we're cannibalizing equipment. It's hard to get parts.
Yeah.
Something that this board, we need to take a real hard look.
Yes.
And for preparation of 2016.
Yes.
It's going to be a huge election, especially with same-day registration, something we really need to take a hard look at.
Mm-hmm.
Lance, when you say we need to take a hard look, what are the alternatives that you're considering, or the alternatives that are possible? Or is it just a question of replacing this, but I gather this equipment as is no longer on the market?
No, it isn't, and we need to replace it. And it's something that I'm working with staff to come up with some kind of proposal, even some type of financial proposal also of purchasing some new equipment, because with same-day registration, it's going to impact this agency. It's going to be a huge impact. Other items that we really need to look at, and we'll talk about it later on, but we do need some type of head judge or some type of supervising judge in the polling place, especially with same-day registration. And it will be here 2016.
Okay. Legislation. There was quite a voluminous omnibus election package that I saw from you, Mr. Scanlon.
Right, Mr. Chairman. There is a House Amendment number 1 to Senate Bill 172, which is before the General Assembly in the veto session. And in fact, there's going to be a hearing on the bill today in House Executive Committee. There are a number of changes proposed in the bill, not the least of which is Election Day registration, I think Mr. Allen alluded to. It would extend, it's not even referred to as Election Day or as grace period registration, it is simply Election Day registration that would be permitted on Election Day in all precincts. In addition, there would be registration during the period for early voting. The proposal is to extend early voting all the way through Monday, the day before the election. So, you know, these are changes that are not surprising. I think we anticipated that may be happening. If it is approved by the General Assembly, right now, the effective date would be June 1 of 2015. So these requirements would kick in for the 2016 presidential elections. So obviously those are major changes. There are other changes to the bill as well. You know, they changed absentee voting to vote by mail. They also do away with the requirement that vote by mail ballots be returned, if not by the voter, be returned by a spouse or relative of a voter. The bill would allow anyone to return a ballot on behalf of a voter. And there are a number of other changes I think I outlined in the memo I sent around to the commissioners last Friday. So we'll probably learn more today. as to what parts of that bill will stay intact, if any, and what might get stripped out or added in. So I will closely watch what happens today and probably communicate later on today to the commissioners to let them know what any additional changes there are. Did you have a?
Oh, you pointed out in the memo about 40 days.
Yeah, that's one of the things. They want to start early voting 40 days before the election.
I saw that.
I think that obviously there are a couple of problems with that. One is it's very difficult for the board to have a ballot
won't
prepared
have a ballot.
40 days
That's
before the
problem
election,
number one.
especially before a primary election.
Yes.
It'd be less difficult before a general election because generally the ballots are set, but before a primary, it'd be almost impossible to do that. We do have a requirement now that we have to submit to military and overseas voters a ballot 45 days before the election, but that's, we're talking about a smaller number of ballots, and also we're talking about PDFs. We send out a paper PDF ballot to the voters on the 45th day, and we follow up with a regular ballot when it's printed, when it's ready to go. But if we had to do early voting for, throughout the city for any voter who wanted to come in and vote early, it'd practically be impossible to have a ballot ready by that date. So I think we suggested as an alternative, leave things as they are at 15 days before the election, except for a presidential election, and then in that case, move the starting date up to the 22nd day, which is where it was at up until 2 years ago when they moved to the 15th day. So that's a counter proposal we've made. Whether it gets approval by the General Assembly, we'll have to wait and see. So.
Well, Lance, you've always indicated that it's very, very difficult to turn the equipment around or to do what we need to do administratively with even with a day or two between the end of early voting and election day. Are we going to comment on the idea that early voting goes right up to election day eve? Or
Yeah, well,
how do we see that just from the practical side of administering the election?
Well, I think the law says our permanent sites would go right up to that.
Correct.
So at least I wouldn't be doing all 51 sites. If you did all 51 sites, then you would not be able to get election results from early vote on election day. With our permanent sites being 5 to 10 sites, I think we'll be able to work on that. So those are the things that we've added to our comments on that bill.
But now, Jim, if I understand your memo, there is not same-day registration at this moment for the municipal election.
That's correct, yes.
There's that donut hole, so to speak, that it will kick in for 2016, but not for the municipal cycle.
That's correct. The last year, the General Assembly did allow for Election Day registration, albeit at early voting permanent locations. But that was for the November 2014 election only. So it would not apply to any future elections. With the bill now before the General Assembly, again, the effective date of that would be June 1 of 2015. So, those requirements would not be applicable for the upcoming city elections.
Are you aware whether there's any movement to have same-day registration for the municipal cycle?
I'm not aware of any particular desire to have it immediately kick in, no.
Okay.
Well, I don't think, the idea of the move towards same-day registration is a surprise to any of us on the board. We've pretty much seen that coming for the last year or more.
Right.
Okay, we have an item under new business, approval of a contract with court reporters for this election cycle. Mr. Scanlon?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, through Laurel and the Purchasing Department, we issued a request for proposal for court reporting services for 2014 and 2015. The board received 5 proposals. Laurel prepared a summary of the 5 proposals with respect to cost items. I believe a copy of that is in your agenda book. We received proposals from Patty Blair, court reporters, from Expressly Reporting LLC. That is Edna Stroud reporting, is shown on the summary. Edna apparently got married and did a name change, now doing business as Expressly Reporting LLC. We also received a request, or a proposal, I should say, from Victoria Legal and Corporate Services, from Toomey Reporting, and finally from Janssen Litigation Solutions. It is the recommendation, I believe, of the Executive Director, myself, and Jeff Ferdicke, sitting in as the Evaluation Committee, to recommend that the board enter into contracts with 3 reporting services, and those would be Patty Blair, Court Reporters, Expressly Reporting LLC, and Jensen Litigation Solutions. Again, Patty Blair and Expressly, or Edna Stroud Reporting, have been serving as court reporters in past electoral board proceedings, and have experience in providing successful reporting service to the board. I think we also want to expand the pool of court reporters to include a 3rd service provider, and based on price and also based on the quality of the proposal that was submitted, it's our recommendation that a contract be approved for Jensen Litigation Solutions. And again, those prices for the various services are laid out in the summary that's in your book. And so that's the recommendation of the Evaluation Committee.
Any questions or comments of Jim? Is there a motion to approve the court reporters recommended by legal counsel?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Cowan, seconded by Commissioner Hernandez. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
That'll be the order. Legal status report, anything else from you, Mr. Scanlon?
No, Mr. Chairman, other than we're looking forward to a few more objections by Wednesday's deadline. We will try to have all of the calls out in the mail and over to the sheriff's office the following day, and looking forward to an electoral board meeting next Monday morning, December 8th at 8:30.
All righty.
Jim, a question on scheduling. Do you see any likelihood of scheduling on December 26th through the 29th? That's a Friday after Christmas, the weekend, and Monday, the 29th.
The dates again, Commissioner, you said?
26th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
We can, I think we can avoid any electoral board meetings on those dates if that is not convenient for the commissioners. I suspect we will need one, by that, during that week. So it could either be on the 30th or 31st, or on the 2nd of January.
I was trying to schedule some time to see my great-granddaughter.
Well,
Well, that might be a good time to do it, that weekend. I also, if I could get a sense from the commissioners as to what day or dates during the week would be best for having electoral board hearings, so that we can kind of plan out. And I don't need to have those dates today, but I think at least by next Monday, to get a better sense of the commissioners' availability, so we can schedule some dates going forward over the next several weeks.
Yes, I'd like to do that if we could. Do you anticipate, in the best of possible worlds, when would we finish the electoral board?
Well, I think we're probably realistically talking about the first week of, the week of January 5th. If we can finish that week, I think that that would be, I would call it a successful electoral board, if we can finish during that week.
Okay.
I'll call it a green.
Yeah, you're thinking maybe the next week.
I'm just thinking of 2011. I mean, there were a lot more cases then. So,
I like to dream, so.
Okay, we'll work through it. We'll work through it.
Okay.
Okay. We do not have a financial report, so we'll move to the public comment section. Terry, anything for us today? Hope you had a good holiday.
Well, I did. I would like to say about Tom, the only place I knew him was here, but I had the feeling he was my friend. I was very saddened to see in the paper that he passed away.
Well, thank you, Terry. On behalf of his family. Okay, there's no need for an executive session, so we will accept a motion to recess until, will we have a regular board meeting next Monday? December 8th, I know we'll have an electoral board meeting. Will there be for a regular board
I don't
meeting?
think no, we do not need a
Okay.
regular board.
All right, we'll recess.
Well,
Go ahead.
the second Tuesday would be the 9th. Are we then going to reschedule that date or cancel that meeting? And do you want to go as far out then as to the 23rd, or what do you think we need, Lance, in terms of
Can we-
meetings in
since-
December?
Can we do the 8th? Because then that way I'll know what happens Wednesday. So if we could do a board meeting on the 8th.
We'll do one on the 8th. I mean, if we don't have
We're gonna
anything,
meet.
we're going to meet here, so. So we will recess until the next regular scheduled meeting, which will be December 8th at 8:30.
And canceling the meeting scheduled for the 8th, the 9th.
The 9th,
The
yeah,
9th,
we
yes.
won't meet on the 9th.
So moved?
Yeah.
Moved by Mr. Hernandez, seconded by Mr. Tom. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.